Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So when I can finally afford it, this is probably one of the first things I'll pour out of gold. It's one of my favorite molds. I'm already on my third silicone mold for this. Each one of these lasts about 15 pours, depending on the temperature and all that. And I want to pour one of these out of gold. But it occurred to me that there might already be a trace of gold in here because, believe it or not, bismuth decays into gold. The caveat is that it might take more than the lifetime of the universe, right? And the caveat is that when the universe finally does end, it might react with bismuth in some other way anyway, right? And turn it into something else. But in an ideal world, if we live to be trillions and trillions of years old, bismuth, in theory, decays to thallium-205 with a half-life of 2 times 10 to the 19 years, right? Thallium then decays into gold-201 with probably a similarly long half-life. And then gold-201 to mercury-201 with a half-life of 26 minutes. Mercury-201 to platinum-197 with who knows how long, right? Probably similar to the other two. And then platinum to gold-197, the stable kind of gold, in 20 hours, right? Imagine decaying for an insanely long period of time, and then another insanely long period of time, and then almost you turn into gold, but you instantly turn into mercury, right? Because it's not the right kind of gold. And then you wait another insanely long period of time to become platinum 197, and then you turn into gold, right? And that's in theory, right? So it makes me wonder if I already have a few atoms of gold in here. So we could do a calculation, right? So let's pretend this thing weighs about, I want to say about 2 kilograms. So let's calculate how many atoms of bismuth are in here to begin with. We take 2,000 grams. And the atomic mass of bismuth is obviously 209. That's how many moles of bismuth are in this thing. There are 6.02 times 10 to the 23 atoms in the mole. That's how many atoms of bismuth are in here. Let's pretend the bismuth I used for this is maybe a year old, right? It's kind of tricky though. I wonder if I should use the date the bismuth was last refined or when I poured it out of the pot into the mold, because in the pot I probably had a mixture of all that, right? The bismuth was already aged, right? But I wonder if all of these things would melt equally, right? For example, if there was mercury in there, it would probably have volatilized, right? Thallium has a tendency to oxidize when you melt it. And some gold and platinum, they probably aren't even going to melt in that pot, right? So I wonder if I should use the age of the raw bismuth that I got, or if this thing is really only 3 days old, right? Because I just poured it, right? But let's pretend all of these things equally alloyed into the mixture, right? Okay. So in a year, 1 out of 2 times 10 to the 19 is going to decay, right? So we're going to divide that by 2 divided by 10 to the... So in a year, that's how many atoms of bismuth are going to become thallium. That's how many atoms of thallium are in this thing, assuming that the bismuth is 1 year old since it was last refined. But thallium also decays to gold-201. Let's pretend it has a similar half-life of 2 times 10 to the 19 years. It's probably on par with that. It might even be shorter. We recently discovered lead-206, I think, had a half-life of 2 times 10 to the 17 years or so. It was shorter than bismuth. It was discovered after bismuth-209 was discovered to be radioactive, but it had a shorter half-life. Mostly because bismuth is one pure isotope, right? In nature, bismuth only comes up as 209. I guess a trace amount of 210, but mostly 209, right? So it was a lot easier to test for than a specific isotope of lead, right? So then we divide this by 2 times 10 to the... So that's how many atoms of gold 201 are going to be in here. But gold 201 almost instantly becomes mercury 201. So we're not going to worry about that step. And then we got another very long decay, right? So we divide by 2. And in theory, that's how many atoms of gold are in. There's 7 times 10 to the negative. So there's a small probability that out of all the bismuth I own, there might be a random atom of gold here or there. It's probably much more likely that the atom of gold got there because of an impurity in the bismuth than from a decay, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.